All right, we're on this time. No technical glitches today. Let's see. Wait till actually 2 o'clock here. All right, so I put up a post on the channel wanting to get questions from you, other operators, the things I could talk about, and I got some good questions. So we're gonna go through those really quick. And like always, if there's anything else that pops up, go ahead and throw it in the chat, and we can talk about that also. So getting right into it here. First question is, um, do you have any tips or tricks for replacing tracks linkage pins? Had one back out on me today while milling, spent the better part of 3 hours beating it back in. Those are rough. Changing the tracks when you have to beat the pin out and beat the pin back in, it definitely is a struggle. You have to detension the track by pulling the hydraulic hose and capping it on the machine side so it can leak the fluid out and detension the track. And ideally, you want to get the track chain rotated to where the part where you're trying to beat it back in is on the head pulley of the track in the front, and you have to take off the track pads and the track grousers on each side of it so that you can get to the chain. And that's about the easiest way. And then you need two big heavy sledgehammers, one on the opposite side you're hitting as like a backup, and one on the pin. And if you're in the shop doing this, you can freeze the pin and heat the chain just a little bit. Not crazy heat the chain. We're not talking like heat it up like red glowing hot. Just warm the chain up and use a frozen pin, and that'll shrink it just a little bit, and that'll help it go in. And what you want to do too is put some grease on the inside of the track chain where the pin's going to press in, and that'll help out there also. But even with doing all of that, it's a pain in the ass. It's hard, and you're going to be sore, and it's a lot of beating. They have pin presses for the tracks that make it like pretty much just a clink and they're done. But they're like super dangerous if they're not done right, because you can imagine how much force it takes, and they can send pieces of shrapnel flying when something pops or breaks. So also don't forget, if your chain is totally separated, don't forget those two big heavy washers that go on the insides of the links where the two links meet. On the inside there, there'll be a couple of big washers. You can stick them in with grease. And don't worry about packing it full of grease, because it's still not going to come out once it's beat back in. So that's all I got for you on that one. Hope that helps. And that was from Brandon. And now from Boran, maybe Borean. Says, greetings. The machine I use is the W200F series. This series doesn't have the rabbit's foot. How can I perform a nearly perfect excavation on changing road slopes? Thank you in advance. Well, anything you do, you're going to need to have a reference of some sort of target for your grade, right? Be it a cross slope, a depth, or like, a shape, anything like that, what you're trying to achieve. And so you could go through and survey it ahead of time and mark down your cross slopes and use slope and chase it that way, as long as you've got a common depth on one side, say like 2 or 3 inches on one side, and you can run slope on the other, even if you have to change the slope as you're moving. if you can get that information on the ground. You can use the Swede stick and eyeball across the road and write numbers on the ground for how deep to cut. Or if they have the GPS wand thing is amazing. They can just go over and put numbers pretty much anywhere on the job you want and tell you how much to cut, and then you can just chase those numbers. You can use a string line and measure down from the string line and write your cuts, things like that. So just think outside the box and find your own source of reference somewhere, whether it's cross slope, whether it's grade, um, running a string line, GPS, any way you can to get some sort of reference on the ground to tell you where to dig and how much to dig. And that's all I got for that one too. And our third question, this will be a fun one. So I'm gonna pop in the chat real quick. How do they determine how deep to cut? A lot of times it's to make the new section, whatever the section or roadway they're going to put back in, whatever that depth is, it's literally just to make that fit. So if they're going to put 3 inches of new asphalt in, they'll cut 3 inches out, put 3 back in. If they're rehabilitating the road in the base, a lot of times what they'll do is they'll core drill and pull out a section of road and see what's there. And then they'll determine, okay, there's 5 inches of base rock, 4 inches of asphalt, and this is where the dirt is. So to get our section that's up to standard, we need to excavate 15 inches out of the road or whatever, something like that. And then they'll add in whatever reshaping of the road they need. Like, okay, the center of the road was too high; it needs to come down 2%. So we need to cut this deep. That it's all about reshaping the road to what their final product needs to be. So they do it with grade checking with GPS. They'll build a GPS model of what the new road's supposed to look like, and they'll come out and they'll write all the numbers on the ground or put them on the stakes on the side of the road, like what the elevations are that they need to have for the final product. So that's pretty much how they do it. A lot of times we're just in we call them mill and fills, where they just know it's a 2-inch mill. They're putting 2 inches back. We just cut 2 inches off the existing road. We used to do it where we would do like we call a wedge cut, where we just cut the edges around a road 2 inches to nothing so that they can tie into the edges of the road. But then what started happening was the centers of the road kept growing and growing and growing until people couldn't open their car doors anymore. So now they don't really do that anymore. It's all full mill. So hope that answers your question. And let's check over here real quick. Thanks for the comment. Looks like you're my only watcher right now. Let's see. So Diego said, Boss Man is getting a new 210 XF. Awesome, nice machine. Any difference or what should I watch out for? Currently have a 200i. It's going to be a new world for you. The machine itself, the control panel is very, very similar. It's going to take you a little while to get the muscle memory down for the conveyor on and off switch because it's in a slightly different location. So it took me a minute to get used to. It's going to feel really big. It feels like it has a big butt on it. Like the back end of the machine just feels huge, but you get used to it pretty quick. Doesn't take too long to adapt. With the 210, you're going to have the 2-speed drum, which is all automatic. You can't change it. The computer does what it wants with that based on what it thinks you need at the time. It's going to sound like when you're in eco mode and power mode for the most part, but mostly in eco mode, it's going to sound like the engine's idling while you're grinding. And that's totally normal. That's how it is. You'll be like, man, come on, rev this thing up. But all you gotta do is keep pushing the stick forward. It'll rev up with you as much as it needs to. But yeah, you'll be grinding along, in like a 6-inch cut with the motor running like 1300 RPM, and that's how it's designed. And you'll get crazy tooth life out of the eco mode. I mean, it's blows my mind. Um, Trying to think anything else. If it's chunking, sometimes eco isn't smart enough to catch the chunking because the machine actually has a sensor that'll tell it when the asphalt's chunking up in front of you, and it'll bring the engine RPM up automatically to try to spin the drum a little faster to counteract that. But sometimes if it doesn't do it enough, I'll kick it into power mode because you have under your drum switch, you have eco, power, and pattern mode. So you're running eco most of the time, and then you can, in the deeper cuts, like 6 inches or more, I pretty much always use power. I think in the working manual, it even says that eco is for more consistent milling, where you're just on like on a freeway taking like 2-3 inches off, and you're just going nonstop. Um, Power is better for the deep cuts, and power will spin the drum slightly faster. Um, when you turn the drum on, it's you turn it. The first one is automatic, and that will run the eco, power, or pattern. And if you turn it on again, if that makes sense, kind of like the way you did on the I models to change the speed, it'll go into manual. When it's in manual, it's like the third drum speed on the I machine. It's full throttle all the time. Everything's on. No automations work. None of your active second cuts work. None of that stuff. It's just full manual, old school machine, basically. But in eco and power, your active second cuts will work. All your grade control automatics will work. All that stuff. So that's where I run most of the time, is either eco or power. I try to use eco as much as I possibly can, unless like it's really like surging and chunking, then I'll kick it to power, and that usually will solve it. Sometimes when I'm digging dirt, though, I do have to run full throttle because you need the extra drum speed to get that material out. Like if the drum isn't spinning fast enough, it'll want to bog down and cake up. So what other differences with the 210? You're going to have the John Deere motor if it's the XF. I'm pretty sure all of them are that way. I like that motor a lot. It's quieter, it's smoother than the Cat. Kind of sounds like a combine when you start it up, which is interesting. At least that's what I've heard. I've never really heard a combine, but that's what they say. It does definitely sound different. Like when you throttle up to grind, like it doesn't just like power up all at once. It almost like double throttles up. Like it doesn't just spin up all at once. It's hard to explain. You'll see. It's kind of a neat sounding motor. Very smooth. Let's see. What else is different? When you're filling it with water, it'll beep when it's full, so you know when to shut the water off. That's kind of cool. Man, coming from an I model, it's going to be totally different because of the way the grade control box is. You're gonna have to brush up on all my videos. The ground man can turn the water on and off, and pretty much the ground man, when he has his, if you have one, when he has the box plugged in down below, he has all the same control over the machine that you do. He can turn the water up and down, on or off. You can do that on the control panel too without even having the box on. Pretty much can control everything to do with the grade control. So that's kind of neat. You do get a lot more that they can do. They can see the MDI below. They can do all that. So that's kind of cool. Okay, so jump into the chat real quick. How do you set up for next passes on a 120 CFI XFI? What's the fastest way to do it properly? The way I do it is I leave it set to 0 on the side that's matching, and I lower it down manually to whatever I would normally dial it into to make it match. So like if I was going to dial it down, like say a 3-inch cut, I was going to dial down to like 2.1. I would just leave it at 0, but manually lower it down and watch my actual go to like 2.1 and then pull forward. And as soon as the plate drops in and matches 0, I turn the automatic on. So that saves time for me having to dial it up. As long as the ground is flat, the track is on. That's the fastest way to do it. Just lower that side in by hand to around half your depth, or a little more, and drive forward. The plate will drop in. Your actual will come down to 0 or really close to it. Turn the automatic on. Hope that makes sense. Trying to think what else since we're back on the 210. What's different? The lights are a lot better. You're gonna like that. Yeah, they calibrate just like the big machines, pretty much. You push the little button. I just did it last night actually on the machine I was running. Leave the machine sit down at the end of the day. Yeah, I mean, it couldn't hurt in case something does go screwy. What do you mean leave the machine sit down at the end of the day? What do you mean like lowered down to the ground or up in the air? Is that what you're saying? But to calibrate the sensors on the 4-footer, there's a little button under the display. It says set and act. You push that twice, and then it'll ask you to click the knob in, and then it'll let you change the calibration. Yeah, that 210 is another animal. You're gonna love it. I would be super excited if I were you coming from an iMachine to that big of a jump in technology. Cool. Glad I could help you, Vladimir. Any other questions, Diego, since you're here about that 210? You must be getting a good deal on it to go to that big of a jump of a new machine from a 200i. It's a little longer doing parking lots and stuff. But it kind of limits how far back you can get. I mean, it's not much. I think it's only a foot or two. What else is different with FI? Can't think of anything. Sure, if I walked around the two side by side, I'd be like, oh yeah, this and this and this, but I'm trying to think off the top of my head, it's not coming to me. Any other questions, guys? Throw it in the chat. I have one question. Somebody asked, how can I text you? I'm not currently accepting text messages. Sorry. Well, if we don't have any more questions, I'm going to sign off and go back to bed. I worked last night, but if you got more things to talk about, throw them in there. All right, guys. We'll call that a wrap for today. Hope those answers to those questions. That sounds better. Hope they helped you out, and feel free to comment. And thanks for watching the newest videos. I appreciate it. And all your subscribing and all that things really helping the channel out. So thanks for the support, and we will catch you all later. Be safe.